Happy Friday, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to VidTalks 100th episode. Now, in case you're new here, VidTalks airs every Tuesday through Friday on VidCon's LinkedIn page. And for today's episode, I'll be moderating a roundtable discussion focused on how brands, social platforms, and agencies can help creators thrive in 2023. Now, I'm very excited because today I've invited 3 experts in the creator industry to help shed some light on this topic and the issues surrounding the current and future state of the creator economy. Now, first, I'd like to welcome Brendan Gahan. He's the partner and chief innovation officer at Mechanism.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Brendan. Now, you and your team focus on storytelling for emerging media. Can you give us just a quick rundown of what that really means and how your role plays out at the intersection of technology, design, culture, and brand stories?
Yeah, for sure. Well, storytelling for emerging media is essentially bringing brand stories to life through digital channels. And in terms of my role, although it literally just changed, it was chief social officer. So I'll just speak to it from that angle, but essentially overseeing we're a full service agency. So we do everything from print, TV, out of home, creative strategy, brand strategy, et cetera, media buying. But I oversee the social team, and essentially it's how can we get the word out about the brand through social channels. So influencer marketing, community management, content creation, social listening, et cetera. And in my new role, I'm playing more of an education role internally and externally, as well as working on a lot of strategic partnerships and that type of thing.
So fascinating. Well, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And also joining us today, we have Ivana Kirkbride. Welcome, Ivana. Unsurprisingly, Ivana, your resume covers some of the most impactful brands within the digital space. Most recently, your role at Meta, where you served as the director of product marketing for entertainment products. Talk a little bit about how your career thus far has touched the creator economy.
Yeah, I'm so fortunate that I've been in the creator economy for over 20 years, pre-MySpace and social media to some extent. But I've spent time at disruptive startups such as Vessel, and also working with creators at platforms for companies such as Verizon, Google/YouTube, and Meta, which includes Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, and other products. So I've had a bit of a tour of duty from both the product, or I would say the investor, the media, and the creator markets. But I think my favorite role has been serving on the VidCon Industry Advisory Board for over 7 years now. So just seeing how far we've come since our early days has been really amazing to see.
Yeah, and we appreciate that as well. And you've been such an asset to that board. Also joining us today, last but of course not least, is Courtney Carter. She's hopping on for today's discussion. She's the founder and CEO of the Carter Media Group. Hi, Courtney.
Hey.
Now,
the Brady Bunch, we're here.
Yeah, we are. Courtney, you run a management media and consulting company that represents what your company calls shapers, and I love that. Talk a little bit about what that means and your experience working with creators.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that, we tend to gravitate, represent, and be able to, I'm super grateful. We're trusted to amplify and advocate voices and people and stories, ideas that are really shaping culture, right? In my mind, that's bringing folks together. So that the people that we tend to represent are doing that through a swath of things. So we work with people across an industry, right? Like not just one industry, across industry, in different, whether that's fashion or sports or culinary or comedy. We just really tend to identify the person that can create audience and help them identify what their brand is, what that purpose really is, and then how to amplify that in all the various ways that the industry allows.
Well, I love that. Well, we've got a great group of people here, and thank you guys again so much for joining us. As I said earlier, the topic of our discussion focuses on how we can help creators thrive through economic change. And as we enter 2023, many experts are saying that creators need to have diverse income streams, especially as creator funds for platforms like Pinterest have dried up. My first question would be, what do those income streams look like? And talk about why you think that's so important.
I'll take a first crack at it. I think it was Warren Buffett that said diversification is the only free lunch in investing. I think the same is sort of true with any creator, any business, but particularly creator businesses. This is an investment in themselves, and diversifying revenue streams really helps them sort of manage risk. I mean, we're seeing right now why it's so important. So many creators relying on advertising via partner programs, or even YouTube, for example, ad revenue declined by 2%. They're putting themselves at risk. And so I think what we're going to see is a byproduct of that. Ad revenue goes down. So much of the industry has sort of relied on that. And at the same time, we sort of see this crop of tools empowering creators to monetize their communities directly, whether it's through products or paid communities, subscriptions, etc. So I think it's going to drive an acceleration of monetizing communities directly through brands and exclusive content and subscriptions, paid communities, etc.
Yeah, I'll just build on that. I was part of a startup called Generate in 2006, and part of it was betting on at the time television dollars shifting into digital dimes, and that time has come, right? Almost 15 years later, and what is interesting in terms of what Brendan was touching on, which is we have technology innovation. It's even simpler to go direct to consumer, direct to your audience, as Courtney was saying. And those tools are pretty self-service and really simple. And B, you have fragmentation in terms of the ad market, not just within sort of democratization of those television dollars into a lot of other things, which actually means that there's more leverage for individual content creators and influencers to monetize across a 360, across an omni-channel, if you will. So 360 degrees of any kind of advertising revenue stream, any kind of merchandising or consumer product stream. Your brand is your IP. And if your IP is at the center, you can actually leverage that IP across many things today, not just ad revenue, not just brand dollars. And that's what's like so exciting about what we're embarking upon in 2023. All that being said, we are going into a bear market. And so having to diversify with calculated risk is going to be key.
Ivana, I feel like you just set me right up. I don't know if I could have said it any better, and we didn't plan this, just so everyone knows. But my prior role before being starting Carter Media Group, I was an agent at CAA, and really at the very pivotal moment of what Ivana mentioned, which is the democratization of content and channels. Right? Hollywood was very much a studio model for a very, very long time, right? And then new platforms came in and disrupted. And I started there. I came from the outside. So I came from sports. I came from a big media company and ESPN. And before that, with really important properties on the sports side, like Madison Square Garden and Major League Soccer. And so my perspective was very different when I entered an agency that was traditional. And at the same time, Vine had started to take off, Instagram. Like I was teaching television hosts how to use Instagram. They were like, why? I'm like, because you're going to have a direct relationship with people that are going to buy things, watch you, engage with you. And ultimately, I think what a lot of today's conversation for me is coming down to is trust. You're building trust. And then you are deciding how you want to engage on that trust, or I guess transact. Doesn't always have to be monetarily, right? So the diversity of that transaction is super important. So if you're Kevin Hart and you all of a sudden want to start a YouTube channel because that's going to diversify your revenue stream and allow you to build a media company, or you are, a Viner or a TikToker, an emerging YouTube artist, you have to look at maybe more traditional ways of understanding how to diversify your portfolio as well. And that could be something as more traditional as starting a brand or a product or a line of t-shirts or clothing or something like that might be more traditional. And I hate that word, but I think it's, to Ivana's also point, it's a weird year. I think my question I actually want to ask back is, I think it's also very generational. So I feel that case in point, Thursday Night Football is now on Amazon Prime, right? Ivana wants to buy her time. Where is broadcast going? And so is the millennial generation, I have a question, and the Gen Z generation in terms of their consumer habits and whether they're going to engage in niche communities or they're still going to trust kind of large scale media. I think I have a big question in terms of like consumer behavior and generational models. So I'm really interested to see, Tessa, with you and Brendan and Ivana think about that, because I'm struggling with the answer myself.
Well, you guys are the experts, so I'll let you guys take this one on.
I have so many thoughts. I know I'm just trying to restrain myself. You brought up so many great points, and Brendan, having you weigh in on the agency side of this would be really important too, because I see both the buy side and the buy side and the sales side sort of operating a bit differently. And to your point, Courtney, consumer behavior changes are actually happening much faster than what the market and the infrastructure that's holding up that market is being able to adapt to.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, my kids are actually Generation Alpha, so I think they come after Gen Z. Yeah. And what is very normal for their media consumption behavior is having 4 devices on all at once. And they're able to actually interoperate between all 4, whether that's TikTok on their phone, and on the iPad it's Roblox, and then on the screen it's Netflix. But they're also watching Disney Plus. And if it's my son, from time or my daughter, she's watching UFC and things on ESPN. So I think number one, the consumer behavior is getting very, very diverse, very, very narrowcast versus broadcast. Yep. And then in terms of where the dollars are going, they're going to start to follow. However, it's going to be very fragmented. And I think what we are not going to be able to see that has happened in decades behind us in traditional media is the bundle, right? So we have seen, as evidenced by all the streaming platforms competing for content, such as Thursday Night Football, and DirecTV just lost the NFL package for the first time in a decade. Competition for content, for differentiation, is going to be so key, and it's because we're no longer going to be able to compete with just bundled services. That being said, the unbundling of the cable bundle, it led to this fragmented streaming platform environment and market that we have. So there will be sort of a reaction to that in terms of paring it down to sort of the top 3. And I think what that means for creators and creators of content is that there's going to be a whole lot more opportunity as that kind of.
You think more?
I think so. Buy side. So I don't think it's actually going to create opportunity for the platforms or for media dollars per se, because it's going to be really hard to sort of place them where it's going to have the most impact in reaching the audiences at scale. I actually think there's going to be an opportunity for content creators and influencers in terms of being able to take advantage of that opportunity and that disintermediation.
Wow.
Yeah, it's I'm blanking on who said that phrase, but it's all businesses are bundling or unbundling of services or something to that effect. I think we're experiencing the unbundling right now.
Totally. And from a talent representation, that's my question is, okay, if you've gotten a significant amount of your revenue from the bundling, right? Where do you go in the unbundle?
Well, but that's where, and I may be thinking of different examples, but what I'm thinking of is every platform that is associated with a public company, their market caps have dropped by 75% across the board in the last year because there's so much competition. I mean, even with Disney and Comcast and all those others, you're also seeing quite a bit of decline in terms of market cap. However, you look at Mr. Beast, and he's probably at $1 billion plus valuation in terms of his ability to leverage his brand and his IP and his direct channel to his audience across, burgers, retail stores, merch, everything, right? And again, he's probably the top 0.1%. But I think it's a good proof point in terms of like there is sort of a white space opportunity. I don't know how long that window is going to be, but there is an opportunity for the folks who can sort of act fast.
Now, one stream of income that you guys have already kind of touched on a little bit that many creators rely on is brand partnerships. And as the economy shifts in 2023, what do you think those partnerships will look like? And how do you think brands can be proactive?
All right. Ivana, were you raising your hand or
no?
Or
I was like, Brendan, you should weigh in.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
I'm peer to you.
All right, sweet. I didn't want to cut you off. So there's sort of like the want, which I think for the last decade plus, we've been preaching to brands do like longer term partnerships with creators. I think kind of going back to the point of around like the economic conditions, while we are sort of like entering this economic uncertainty, at the same time, creators have more opportunities for monetization than ever before. So in a lot of ways, they actually have more leverage than they previously did. Before it was like 90% of their revenue pie was advertising. Now for a lot of creators, it's totally like inverse. So they've gained leverage. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to see creators continue to be pickier and more selective about the brands that they collaborate with. As a result, I think what we're going to see is brands will need to approach creators and do partnerships that are more in line with like an athlete style endorsement and focus on like longer term, highly integrated engagements, bring them into the multiple marketing channels, co-branding products, etc. Because when you take a step back, the amount of time and resources spent on these like one-off activations is massive. I mean, if we're looking at it through like the athlete celebrity endorsement model, how insane would it be if Nike had just done a one-off with Jordan back in the day? They sponsored him to play his first NBA game and they walked away from it. Most marketers would say that's insane, that's ridiculous. It leaves them open to working with, Adidas, Reebok, Converse, etc. The whole thing would be inefficient, and both the brand and the athlete or creator would lack credibility. So why do we do this with creators? I think it's a huge misstep, and it's sort of, there's just been momentum that direction. And I think this bear market or recession or whatever is going on is going to be a transition period, because a lot of creators are going to realize that they can't rely on advertisers wholly. And there's going to be an acceleration in them investing in monetizing their audiences more directly. So they're going to have more leverage when the brands go out to them. And that in turn is going to basically make the brands have to approach them with something that's more meaningful than a one-off.
And thoughtfully. And I'll just say, Brendan, exactly. Like, as somebody who every single day gets on the phone with agencies and brands as a representative of talent, if you don't come thoughtfully and you don't know who my talent is, unless that bag is real big, it's like, okay, well, let me educate you on my client. We would never do this because this is not what we stand for, et cetera, right? So I think when I went back to the word trust, for me, I think the future of these partnerships, Tessa, is brands really have to find the authentic connection to where a content creator or a person or a talent or whatever you want to name has a thoughtful relationship with their community. I think that also the larger scale you are as a creator, that's a harder thing, because you have a massive audience, and then you're kind of, unless you're direct D2C with everyone, you're you're kind of dependent on algorithms, which is tough. But a lot of our talent, we do things that are very thoughtful and very long term, because you cannot change a mind, you cannot gain trust. People are hip to it now. The consumer gets it. They'll also know if that's a great quick check, they respect it too. So they'll know, oh, okay, that was good for them. They made some money.
Well, and then Courtney, are you seeing that the brands and the platforms are probably pitching you more now versus when you were at CAA? I mean, because they're probably pitching they're probably customizing their pitches.
They're coming more thoughtfully. I will say 100%. than they were before. Before, I was doing a lot of the forward thinking. They were coming in with an RFP or saying, hey, we wanted to do this. And I had to completely pivot because I wouldn't want to lose the money. So I'm like, hey, well, let me re-educate you on the client. And then let me help you understand how you should layer in your brand story with our community in a thoughtful way, and essentially free consult for them. And I will say that it has shifted. They're getting smarter, which is really nice because it saves everybody time, energy, and money. And to be honest, it makes the campaigns a lot stronger.
Yeah. I think the winner out of all of that is the audience and the consumer, right? Because you actually have much more personalized, customized messaging that's tailored to, the person who's interested in buying the product, and also, the audience who's there to watch the creator or the influencer.
Totally.
And then, Brendan, I'm curious, like, are you seeing a shift in terms of ad budgets from like from television to sort of social and then within social, like, are you seeing it sort of going in one direction more than in another?
Yeah, definitely. Television dollars have been slowly siphoned off and chipped away at to social. A lot of TV, traditional TV buys have been reallocated to CTV as well. And then in terms of social, I would say that, as it pertains to sort of this conversation, I think there's a recognition of the role that creators play in social media programs, and within their budgets, it's sort of like pre-allocated, and it's sort of shifted away from that sort of like, oh, experimental, to we have a line item for creators.
I felt like that was a pivotal moment when it shifted away from this experimental innovation budget into it's now a need to have, must have line item.
Or is the only thing you have, because you actually want to reach somebody directly where they are, to your point, Ivana, on the couch while they're they're not sitting and watching a show and maybe skipping through commercials. They want to have a real relationship. And so the other thing I would say is, I really love it as a representative talent when a brand or a company comes to me and says, hey, I want to very thoughtfully partner with you, but also I have a creator budget for you to bring in people that you know and love and trust, and pay them to amplify this campaign or this message, right? Because it only makes the campaign more meaningful, because your consumer knows. They know who that person's friends are or that community is, and you always want to bring your friends up. You don't want to call them and be like, hey, can you help me secure my money? You're not going to get paid, but like, can you show up? And so I would really like to advocate and encourage brands and anybody who's on that side, agency side, to as you're putting together budgets for campaigns, okay, there's a talent budget for maybe top talent, but then give them a sub budget for them to also distribute some funds to some of their own friends who are creators. That's only going to amplify that message in a much more thoughtful way.
Yeah, which is not too dissimilar from the mid 2000s when they were deploying their budgets on websites, and then it became a network of websites. Whether that was Facebook Audience Network or Google, or
oh my gosh, I remember
GDN, Google Display Network, like whatever it is, it's not too dissimilar. It's just now it's got a real face and personality behind it. Well, I was also just going to point out, again, I have this like focus group of 3 at home. I have a high schooler, middle schooler, and a 3rd grader. And what's so fascinating to me is attention spans are definitely much shorter now with younger audiences. And like, I can't even, I'm like, I do this for a living, and my kids go through who their favorite creators like change now on a daily basis. And, I think back to when I was at YouTube, and it was like, the top YouTubers were the top YouTubers for at least 5 years. And then at Facebook and Instagram, it's sort of like a shelf life of like, 3 years. And now it's, I don't know, I sort of see that shelf life in terms of, being in that top 10%, just sort of getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And then when I look at my kids, I'm like, yeah, it's because they're like just churning through so many names so quickly. Again, they're a long ways off from 18 to 34, but that's sort of like the generation that we got to start thinking about pretty quickly. What that means for 2023, though,
Yeah.
is right now I may be wrong here, but I really do think 2023 the winners are going to be the content creators, because content's what is going to differentiate these platforms, businesses, and agencies and advertisers to the consumer, who are getting much more sophisticated and picky. And I think that there's going to be huge consolidation within the platforms and within the corporations, and you're already seeing it, like Amazon, Prime Video, Freevee, Amazon Studios. I mean, like, all of those divisions are being consolidated. MGM, they acquired MGM. Like, all of those things are being consolidated. And I would say, at a lot of the larger companies, there's a lot of consolidation happening too. And so when you look at the macro market, because it's a quote unquote recession, they're going to be forced to consolidate even further. And so I don't know that they're going to sort of come out on top in 2023, but I definitely feel like the people who are supplying what's differentiated, whether it's content, talent, you name it, there's a real opportunity to come out on top this year.
Yeah, Ivana, I love how you talk about the content creators. And I think to wrap up the conversation, something that has been at the top of a lot of people's minds in recent years, and then also as we head into 2023, is just kind of what are some of the ways social platforms can better support creators as we move into 2023.
Actually had people see their posts. That would be great.
Courtney, bravo. Courtney wins it.
If you're gonna create a product that's called a collaboration post, that when people use it, people actually see it. I don't know. I should probably bite my tongue a little bit here, but if we're gonna create content, you can't have burnout either. So you got to have some affirmation. People want to see your stuff. People follow you for a reason. They've got to clean that up. I think that would be really lovely. I also think the only person or platform that's ever really gotten the rev thing right is YouTube. I know everyone's tried, and everyone jumped off Vine because it failed, and IG really tried, Meta really tried, I think, but maybe not. So and TikTok's not doing it, and so then you're dependent on brand dollars and subscription platforms. So I would say the places where the mass scale is, create a better revenue model for the creators from an ad standpoint. And then from the subscription standpoint, make it easier and keep the fees low.
Brendan, I'll let you jump in here and get the last word.
Sure. I'll try and not rant too long, but I think that to what Courtney was saying, that's a real challenge. But you've got this push-pull where essentially people who are early to a platform can generate a disproportionate amount of value generally because there's less competition. As the platform gets more saturated, it gets harder and harder to grow. So there's a push-pull that these platforms are trying to navigate of, like, we've got more and more content and we want to serve the best content to the most relevant people, but we also don't want to burn people out. And so you've got the established creators competing with the new creators. You don't want to make it so tough for the new creators. It's really difficult. And so I think that what we're going to see, and this is not a solution for the social platforms, I think it's more of a solution for the creators, is creators need to invest in building up a defensive moat by owning some direct line of communication to their fans, whether that's an email list or an SMS or Discord, whatever that is. I think that's their hedge to make them relevant in a meaningful way long term. Because at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, interests could change. There's short form content is at an all-time high. That's not slowing down. So it's just going to be more competitive. So to me, that seems like the best solution. That direct line of communication with your fans.
I'm so sorry. I know Brendan was supposed to have the last word, but I have something very provocative, which is when I was at YouTube, Hannah Hart and a group of folks went to the White House, met with Obama to advocate for healthcare, because creators or, you know, or 1099s, independent consultants. And if we're talking about burnout, which is really real, you know, during the pandemic, post-pandemic, and as Brendan was saying, like, as you know, as the competitive landscape just becomes even greater, honestly, we either need, I hate to say this, but like, in the same way that writers and directors and producers have the PGA, the DGA, and the WGA, I know, I'm going there. There needs to be some sort of industry affiliation that is looking out for the safety or for the protections of these content creators. That is like just really basic things like healthcare, and or we need some sort of government entity to offer universal health care for this particular category of work. Otherwise, you're going to see more. I mean, we've all read the same. Sorry, there's a trash can or a truck behind me, but we are going to see a whole lot more of these really, you know, every time I think of what has happened in the past year in terms of content creators who have taken their own lives or who have really burned out to an extent where there are real dire consequences. It doesn't just end with them. It actually spreads out to their audience, and it actually spreads out to others. And so we have to come together to really figure out a solution here.
Ivana, I know we're ending here, but producer said we can talk a little bit longer. I want to just shout out Creator Coach. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Josh Zimmerman. But he saw this as a real problem, Ivana, and, you know, came from the content side and has really entered the market as a very, you know, accredited person to help specifically with creators, because it is a whole new generation of health issues. And I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I think to wrap up, Brendan, your point, and Ivana, the thing that I'm hearing the most in our whole conversation, and Tessa, you really kind of hit the nail on the head in asking about, you know, what do the creators want? And then, you know, how do brands, and I'm like, autonomy and trust. Everybody wants to feel like they can be independent and have independent thought and own their audience, Brendan. I think it's super key and super important. And then also trust that either they can have with their audience that they build and a brand can help draft off of. So to me, those are the two kind of main things as a creator you're really trying to find and mine. And then as a brand or an agency, you should be looking for those two things as you're looking to partner with talent in these spaces. Because I think then they'll be safe. They'll feel safe.
That's what I was going to say. It's trust and safety and well-being. Creator trust and safety and well-being, at least from a platform perspective, I think should be core to any platform that has creators creating content for them. But just universally, I think creator well-being is definitely an issue that we need to find a solution to.
Guys, this has been so good, and I know I've learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone watching has learned a lot as well. Thank you all for tuning in as well to VidTalks 100th episode. If you haven't already, make sure to set a reminder again for watching VidTalks on VidCon's LinkedIn page every Tuesday through Friday. Guys, thank you so much for coming on today, and I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to have more conversations with you all in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tessa.
Thank you.